So I've already done a video on basic personal hygiene, I might as well also do one on basic relationship skills. So in this video, I'm going to teach you not just how to be a good listener, but also why. Because I find that most people sort of teach the techniques that you employ, but they don't really explain why you do these things and what effect they have on the people that are talking to you. Being a good listener isn't just something that'll improve your romantic relationships, even though that is where it will be used the most probably. It'll also make you into a better friend and general influence on others. And if you understand some basic things, it's actually pretty easy. Here's the first and most important lesson. Complaining is a good thing. The thing that ultimately defines a good listener is their ability to listen to other people complain about things. If you are someone who thinks that complaining has never solved anything and therefore you shouldn't do it, there is a good to fair chance you're not a good listener, because complaining about things does actually help most people. Of course, this varies from individual to individual, but the primary purpose of complaining about things is to relieve emotional stress. There are things in your life that bother you and you want them to not bother you anymore, and just complaining about them will do that. It's unburdening yourself. Very often, just the act of talking about your problems will leave you feeling a lot better. This is why most psychotherapy is talk-based. Therapists are really just people who are making money off being good listeners. I'm a huge complainer. I complain about all of the things all of the time. And it's not that I'm trying to take small things and make them bigger than they actually are, it's that I'm trying to take my small problems and make them not bother me anymore, and take my big problems and make them bother me less. Now you might say that talking about your problems, big or small, is essentially just dwelling on them, and that is the reason why you feel bad. This may be true for you because people do feel emotions in different ways. Probably isn't though. There is a point where a person is just dwelling on a problem. That is true, that point exists. But you as a good listener, it's not really your job to find that point. What you're supposed to do is create an environment where a person can freely vent without feeling judged. Because when they do feel judged, that can actually make the things that they have been venting about feel worse. When people vent and complain, they are exposing themselves emotionally, so really it's an extension of trust. And obviously, when someone extends trust to you, they kind of rely on you, not exploiting that opening to hurt them. This is why people get mad when you're not a good listener. They feel personally attacked, even though that was probably never your intention. The nice thing about listening is that they will be doing pretty much all of the talking. Here's what you have to do, and this is the only thing you really have to do. You listen to what they have to say, and then sometimes you nod and agree with them. Yeah, that sucks is a magical sentence. Personally, I like to inquire further upon certain details, even if it's just to show them that I am taking what they're saying seriously, but you don't have to do that. And the whole taking it seriously thing really is very important. No matter how petty the complaint is, they are already having strong feelings about it, and it's not your place to judge whether or not those feelings are justified. You may have an opinion, but you should at this point keep it to yourself. Just because they're complaining about something that you wouldn't complain about doesn't make it less judgy. And obviously being judged by someone in a moment where you're emotionally vulnerable hurts. There can, of course, come a point where it's just annoying. That's true. It's okay to feel that way so long as you, a good listener, just powers through it. You are, after all, trying to do something nice for another person. Within reason, of course. Also, and this is very important, this is probably the most important thing that many people get wrong. Don't give advice. I know it may seem tempting. I know it may seem helpful. Your intention is probably to be helpful. After all, if they're complaining about these things bothering them, the best way of fixing the things that are bothering them is fixing the things that are bothering them. That makes sense, but it's not why they're complaining to you. Very often, they will already know the solutions to their problems, and sometimes even feel guilty about complaining about them because they already know how to solve them. They're not coming to you for ideas and advice on how to fix things. They're just coming to you to offload their emotions. When someone vents to you about something, and the first thing that you do is offer a way by which that thing could be solved easily or in a more complicated way, all you're doing is essentially blaming them for their problems. It feels as though you're not taking them seriously and you're just invalidating their emotions. They're not allowed to feel this way because they would have had to fix the thing and not feel this way in the first place. That isn't the effect that you want to be having. There is, of course, room for giving advice when being a good listener. Often people might even come to you to vent and then take your advice, because the fact that you've listened to them vent establishes that you respect them enough. It's a lot easier to take advice from a person that you think respects you and likes you. When you have some experience with being a good listener, you will get to the point where you just know which things people want advice on and which things people just want to vent about, and when they are done venting and are asking for advice. But you don't need to intuitively know these things. At some point, people might just ask you, what should I do, when they're done venting and they want advice, and that is the point where you can spring in. Sometimes they will come to you only for advice and not for venting at all, because knowing that you're a person that can be vented to sometimes already helps a lot. But of course, depending on just how autistic you are, you may not be able to pick up on that, and that's okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with asking the person that is venting to you whether they just want to vent, or whether they want advice, or whether they want to vent and then get advice. But it's important to establish that you are here for them and you have created an environment where they can talk about their problems and they can complain about things without you judging them. Sometimes the advice that you will give them will be the exact solution that they will already have thought of themselves. They just want it confirmed by another person. We're social animals. What are you gonna do? So there definitely is room for advice. It's just an ancillary function to listening. It's not the main purpose of it. And if someone says that they don't want any advice, don't give them any. Really, it's about confirmation. About telling them that it is okay to feel the way that they do. And even if they know that you are just trying to be a good listener, that already helps enough that they will feel validated and accepted by another human being. If, for instance, you have a lot of things that bother you, you're very stressed yourself, and actually you should be the person who is complaining to someone about it, but probably you're not the kind of person who does that, other people complaining to you might just be a massive burden on your psyche. And I find that very often people like this are the kind of people who think that emotions are best just put to the side because all they do is just impede your thinking. Unfortunately, that's not how emotions work, and that's a very unhealthy attitude to have. Emotions that you sort of push away, they don't go away. They just hang out in the corners of your mind like just garbage that accumulates. And at some point, you're gonna drown in them. What you have to do is properly dispose of them. And the only way to do that is by emotionally working through them. In my experience, the kind of people who don't like venting, they actually dislike it and will go around saying that it doesn't help anyone, are just the kind of people who feel extremely guilty about it themselves. And when other people do it, they cringe inside because it's something that relates back to them. That's called empathy. It makes sense. And not wanting to be a burden to others is certainly a noble attitude. But being a burden to others is completely okay from time to time. Especially if a person is a good listener, they will understand that you venting to them is actually you extending your trust to them. It's a big honor to have someone trust you to the degree that they will complain to you about things. It makes you feel appreciated. There are, of course, the kind of people who just suck up other people's emotions like sponges. And so, after a conversation, the other people will feel relieved of their bad emotions, while the listening person will just have taken those on. To be honest, I don't really know how to deal with this, because even if I do feel the other person's emotions while they're complaining to me, I also feel the catharsis when they are done complaining. But I know that some people who are emotional sponges are still good listeners and they don't feel bad. I just don't know how they do it. So if you are one of those people, or you happen to know how they do it, please do leave it in the comments. So remember, Listening to others is about making them not feel guilty about expressing their emotions. Give advice only when asked for it, or offer it before you just interject. And if you do need an ear yourself, it's not just okay to complain about things, it is the emotionally mature thing to do. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Subscribestar or Patreon, potentially purchasing some of the merchandise that I have, or the book also. And in that spirit, try being a good listener, and if you are emotionally burdened yourself, try having someone listen to you. I promise you, it is magic. It helps. And it makes sense psychologically, because we are, as I mentioned before, social animals. And see you around, cunts.